Hey everybody, welcome back. Josh Collacchi here at Roto Curve to discuss tonight's pitching picks. Before we do that, as always, we're going to detail last night before getting into a couple pitchers we do like tonight. Obviously, there's one big guy that we'll all have on all of our rosters. But before we do that, I want to get into what happened last night. Of course, Lance Lynn was very good. He couldn't pick up the win as the Cardinals scored one inning too late. They scored 3 in the 8th, and Lynn was only able to get through 6. But he pitched pretty well for cash games. He was able to take a lot of people into the cash section of what they needed to do in their 50-50s. They won a lot of head-to-heads, but you had to pair him with somebody else. And last night was the night of John Danks. He was really incredible. I can't lie. After discussing him yesterday on the video, I was really nervous when Matt Holliday was in the lineup, but he pitched well, and he found that one of those gems that he likes to put out every now and then. We just talked about what he did yesterday against the Astros and what he did against the Royals, and he's able to do it last night against the Cardinals. The other guy we mentioned was Joe Kelly. He didn't do too well, but he did have some strikeouts, and at his price, he wasn't too bad of a value. But he didn't pitch too well. He gave up 4 earned runs. But with those strikeouts, he wasn't decimating your team, but he wasn't GPP winning either. The last guy we talked about, we just mentioned, was Lance Lynn. But one other guy I did mention on the as a GPP play last night, and of course, it's pretty much every 5 days with his talent level, was Jose Fernandez, who were just incredible last night. And I had a friend mention to me that maybe it's Jose Fernandez at domes. Maybe there's something about domes that just allows him to pitch well. Of course, at home in Marlins Park. And yesterday was in Chase Field, which is a very good field to hit in. Fernandez was very successful, and I think that may have some validity. I'm going to have to take a look at the numbers later to verify that. But let's get into today's slate. Obviously, there's an early slate starting soon, just about 30 minutes coming up in the next hour. So some guys we like for the early slate we discussed in the chat. Guys like David Price, Masahiro Tanaka, pick one of those two. But my top guy is Garrett Richards. So hopefully they can put out some good performances before we get to the late slate, which is what we're going to talk about here. It's a 7-game slate tonight. Obviously, with Thursday being a travel day, there's a few early games, which there's 4 games in the early slate, 7 late games. So there usually isn't too many pitching options, but there's actually a lot to filter through tonight. And the first guy I want to talk about, the first guy everybody's going to talk about today, he's the player of the day, as everyone knows, and it seems that way every 5 days, and that's Clayton Kershaw. I don't want to get too much into him because, of course, everybody loves him, but he does pitch in Citi Field today against the Mets, which is one of the worst offenses in baseball, in the best ballpark to pitch in baseball. So everything's hitting his check boxes to make him a good play. That being said, he's very expensive, so you'll need some cheap bets to fit him in. But like we just said, everybody's going to be on them, so let's talk about some cheaper plays before we basically just fill it all up with Kershaw, which most lineups will have tonight, especially in a short slate. There are the cheap guys that I do like today. One is a cash-only option, and the other guy, actually cash and GPP now that I think about it. And the other guy is strictly GPP plays in tournaments. The first guy is just a tournament guy I want to talk about is Trevor Bauer. You've heard me talk about him a lot on Roto Curve simply because he has an excellent slider. He's one of the more talented pitchers in baseball. He just can't figure it out. Sometimes he has issues following the strike zone, which is one of the reasons why I have him just as a GPP pitcher today and probably for the rest of the season, just because he's pretty much too volatile for cash games. And what I mean by that is he could put out a 30-point effort on DraftKings and a 15-point effort on FanDuel, and then the next start he could give up 3 or 4 earned runs in the first inning, then give up a 3 or 4 run or a 3-run inning in the second or third. Before you know it, he's only thrown 4 innings, giving up 5 or 6 runs, and it really decimates your lineup. So with a guy that's not very consistent, but he is very talented, I do like him against the White Sox today, only in tournaments. We've talked about the White Sox before. Their offense is one of the worst in baseball. They're striking out a lot against lefties and now against righties too, and that's what Bauer's specialty is. So although he does have very high upside, he can get a lot of strikeouts, and he's pitching against a poor offense, I'm using him just in tournaments today simply because of his volatility. The next guy I wanted to talk about is probably the guy I will be pairing with Kershaw in cash games tonight, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's Tyson Ross against the Miami Marlins. The Marlins are one of the worst offenses in baseball against right-handed pitching, and that was with D. Gordon and Giancarlo Stanton, who were both out. Without those two guys, they lack the average, they lack the power, and they really just have a bunch of middle-of-the-range players that are hitting in the middle of that order. Dana Hechavarria is a pretty good player. There's guys like Derek Dietrich who can hit the ball well as well. But they're not guys that scare us. They're not guys like Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, Miguel Cabrera. There's nobody like that. And I think that's one reason why I like Ross. And it actually goes in well to what he's been pitching against too, because he shut down some pretty good offenses of late. And now he gets to face some Marlins offense. It's not very good. It could bode well for his value today. And one other thing is that game is in Padres, at home for the Padres, which is in Petco Park, and it's one of the best places to pitch in baseball, especially for pitchers. Now, the one thing I wanted to mention about Ross is his numbers are actually worse at home, which is weird, but you have to remember that Ross has had an issue in his career with walking guys, and that's for some reason has happened more at Petco Park. He has been better of late. He has just 2 walks in each of his last 2 starts, so his control is increasing, and that's pretty much what has led to his better ability to pitch in the last 10 games. He's been very good. His ERA is under 3 in the last 10 starts, and facing an offense like the Marlins, that could make it. He could keep that ERA below 3 tonight in a game where he should potentially go 7 or 8 innings because the Marlins like to swing away. And Ross has a very good slider as well, so maybe he can get that strikeout number up, and that's the reason why I could use him in cash and in GPP tonight. So between those 2 guys, Ross and Bauer, I do like Ross a lot more because I think he's safer in cash games, but the upside definitely edged to Bauer. There are 2 other pitchers I wanted to discuss today, and I don't think I'm going to be picking either one of them, but I want to talk about why. There's been a lot of discussion on Twitter and across the industry today. A lot of people like John Lackey. I was wondering why, because the Royals are obviously not hitting the ball like they once were, but they're still one of the better offenses in baseball, and they don't strike out a lot, which is something I don't like to target when I'm picking pitchers in daily fantasy baseball. Now, Lackey, he's been incredible of late. He really has. He's been a shutdown ace that the Cardinals needed, but you have to think about who he's pitched against. These are his last 7 starts: the Mets, the Pirates, the Cubs twice, the White Sox, the Phillies, and the Twins. Now, if you guys have been following the matchup tools that we like to discuss here on RotoCurve and all the boxes, all those teams struggle to hit the ball, especially against righties. So although Lackey has pitched well, they haven't been against good offenses, and that's exactly what the Kansas City Royals are today. And the fact is that he doesn't strike out many hitters, and the Royals don't strike out much. I just don't see why anybody would want to play Lackey today. Now, he could go out and throw a good game, but I don't think the numbers match up for me to throw him today, especially at his price, with some other guys that aren't too much a bit more, and they have a little bit higher upside and actually a little bit more safety, because the last good offense Lackey faced was the Rockies, and they scored 7 runs on him. The next guy I wanted to talk about was a guy who has a massive increase in his price. That's Lance McCullers. He's over $9,000 on DraftKings, and I believe he's close to that somewhere on FanDuel as well. When you talk about a big price hike, that's something to look at, because McCullers was a guy we'd like to target. He's very cheap. He can go 5-6 innings, get a lot of strikeouts. He's been very good this year. The ERA is in the mid-2s. But the thing is, I'm not sure I can pay $9,300 for him, because the Astros' young pitchers, which I'm just about to discuss, they can only usually go 5 or 6 innings. It's rare that they can go more than 7. And that's because of a little bit of an organizational-wide theory that I've noticed, and I have some friends that are Astros fans that have talked to me about this as well, along with a friend of mine that just got drafted this year, and he's pitching in the rookie ball. So I wanted to discuss a little bit about the Astros' young pitchers. You may have noticed Lance McCullers, Vincent Velasquez, guys like that, and Brett Oberholzer when he came up last year. They seem to struggle to get through 5 innings or 6 innings, and there's a reason for that. In the minor league for the Astros, they throw their starters 3 innings, maybe 4 at the most, all the way up to AAA, which they only throw 5 innings there. And the theory behind that is they get more pitchers in. They have a guy that starts maybe on a Monday and throws 3 innings. That next Friday, on when he has 3 or 4 days rest, or Saturday in the low minor league organizations, he throws 3 more, but in relief. So they don't have their pitchers throw many innings, and once they get to the big leagues, they struggle to get through 5. I think that's what we're seeing with Vincent Velasquez and Lance McCullers. So when you see these young Astros pitchers who are very talented come up, be sure to keep that in mind. That pretty much wraps up the guys I would like to talk about for today. But one guy I wanted to talk about, one thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that tonight is not a night where I'm necessarily going to be playing cash games. I'll tell you why. I think every single person is going to have Kershaw on cash games, and if you're not, it's probably not great practice considering his matchup. But with only 7 games, he's going to be so highly owned that it really just becomes a battle of the batters, especially on one-pitcher sites like FanDuel. On DraftKings, you will need that second pitcher, so it's a little bit different. But still, I expect Kershaw to be very, very heavily owned, just like everyone else does, I'm sure. But I'm probably going to be staying away from cash today, which makes Trevor Bauer more of a play for me. Throwing in a few cheap GPPs tonight and pairing him with Tyson Ross or even like a guy, or even Kershaw in GPP, because he is so expensive. So some people may be fading him just to get the edge for your hitters in tournaments tonight. But between those three guys, obviously we love Kershaw and I love Trevor Bauer in tournaments. But I think Tyson Ross might be that guy that bridges the gap between the lower price and the high performance. So between those three guys, kind of mix and match a little bit in tournaments, and that's pretty much what I'll be doing. I probably will not be playing cash on FanDuel or one-pitcher sites, that is for sure. That pretty much brings us to the end of our pitching segment for today. The one thing I wanted to tell you guys is make sure you're keeping an eye out for the RotoCurve lineups page, because a lot of stuff changes throughout the day, and sometimes lineups come out and they're very underwhelming, which makes the pitcher more attractive. One other thing, if you guys are playing the early slate and you're watching this video before lock, Drew Hutchison was scratched. The pitcher for the Blue Jays today is R.A. Dickey, so be sure to keep that in mind when picking your lineups for the Athletics if you're targeting R.A. Dickey. That'll bring us to the end of the section. Be sure to stay tuned for tomorrow's edition of DraftKings and FanDuel MLB lineup picks. Thank you. Good luck.